This is the Creative Market Free Goods Roundup for the week of September 7th, 2015. There are 6 different free goods this week, but they are free this week only. So if you see something you like when you're watching this video, just check out the description of this video where I'll place links to each one of these 6 different free items. So first up here is 12 famous landmarks in vector. This download includes a bunch of different location-based illustrations in EPS, JPEG, as well as PNG format. So I selected 5 at random here to show using the EPS formats, but there are 26 different locations in total, so these are just 5 of those 26. So if you like what you see right here, be sure to check out the entire pack for everything that you'll get. So the illustration style is very loose and very hand-drawn looking, almost like a quick doodle, and they also have this very nice vector watercolor in the background. So if I select this and bring this off to the side here, you can tell that you can also use just the watercolor background as well if you want to go ahead and do that. If I zoom in really close here, you can get a better look at how these watercolors look up close. They do a nice job of pulling off that subtle watercolor look inside of vector format, which isn't all that easy to do, so they did a pretty good job right here. And here is this particular illustration without the background on it right now, and this is a landmark inside Barcelona. If I zoom in really close in this illustration style, you can kind of see how it looks up close. So it's very rough and loose in its execution, just a very quick looking sketch kind of illustration that if you're looking for something a little bit less formal for a travel blog or something like that, these might come in handy for that reason. Now I'm just going to go through the other 4 right here so you can get a better idea of how these look. And I should note that the watercolor backgrounds are the same on all of them, although they do scale them a little bit differently. So kind of keep that in mind when you're using these, that there is just one watercolor background that's reused throughout all these different elements. So this is of Big Ben inside London, and I actually think the illustration styles pull off really nicely on this one in particular. The loose style does a really nice job of conveying a sense of movement, and it just makes these quite a bit of fun to look at. So here's the next one, which is the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Once again, I think this illustration style works very well on this illustration. So if you're running a travel blog or anything where you think you can really use a bunch of world landmarks to kind of convey your point or idea a little bit better, but you want all the illustrations to be very consistent and not be so standard or quite as rigid as a lot of technical illustrations could be, or as rigid as a photo of these things would be, you want something a bit more fun, these will come in super handy for that. And here's the next one, which is a Colosseum in Rome. This is a pretty quick and loose illustration right here. Not quite as detailed as some of the other ones, but it definitely pulls off the idea quite well. So here's the last one, and this is an awesome illustration of a statue in Thailand. So I'll just zoom in really close here to show this off a little bit. I think they handled the face super well. They pulled off the expression very nicely. And overall, the simple use of lines really does a lot to convey a sense of motion and just the overall feel of the object without getting too busy or too technical. So I think this is one of the better examples from the set as a whole. But that's it for the 5 examples I'm going to show. Remember, there are 26 in total, so if you want to check out everything, be sure to download the pack. So if you are going to download the pack, just be sure to do it this week while it's still free, and then you can go in and check out all the different things that are included. Next up is Art Workspace Mockups. The files are provided in EPS format, shown here inside Illustrator, as well as PNG format that have transparent backgrounds. Although the PNG files are pretty small in their scale, so if you're looking to do anything big, you're going to want to use the EPS files. So I have just the EPS files opened up here, but if you do use the PNGs, each of these different elements is on its own separate PNG with a transparent background. So this first one right here, you can tell there's a whole bunch of different items, and this is actually a seamless repeat as well. So I'm going to very quickly highlight over this and do a very quick repeat of this. It might not be perfect since I'm doing it pretty fast, but it should give you a pretty good idea of what to expect if you go ahead and repeat this yourself. So right here we have the repeat. I'm just going to drag it off this artboard here so you can see it a little bit better. So this is what the repeat looks like. It's pretty good in pulling off the repeat. There is a slightly noticeable visual line going down the center on the vertical right here, but horizontally it breaks things up pretty nicely as these little papers kind of break that up. And I'll just zoom in a little bit closer on the items themselves so you can see the style. Everything has a very cartoony or at least super vectored style to it. Cartoony might be a bad word, but the colors are very flat and bold, giving this a pretty nice flat design look, which is probably the best way of saying how this looks. And it has a very strong color palette as well. That isn't too overbearing, so it should work pretty well on a lot of different websites, which I think is the key use idea for a lot of these different elements. Although of course you could repeat this and put it on like a folder or a notebook or a binder or anything like that. Since it is a seamless repeat, you can kind of scale this up as big as it needs to be. So here's the next one, and this is a workspace mockup. So if you want to show off your own personal workspace, or maybe even show off some designs on these different vector devices, like these vector devices themselves are very nice in their presentation. They're quite simple, but that's actually a good thing if you want to show off your design as the really primary focus and you don't want the device that it's shown on to be a little bit too distracting. And if you don't want a super realistic take on it, something like this can be quite nice. And of course you can use these as hero mockups for website headers and stuff like that. So I'm going to quickly go to the next one so you can really see some examples of that. So on this one right here, we have a website header as well as a blog header. And of course, you can use the blog header on a website or the website on a blog. They're really all the same thing anyways. But you can of course pull the different items from the other pages as well and lay them out on here as you see fit. And you can of course select these different elements here and change the colors of them as well if that's something you want to go ahead and do. It's very easy to go in there and do that. So there are these two pre-made elements for that exact purpose right here if you want to put them on a website or a blog. And here's the last one, and I should note on this one there was a wooden background that if you use the PNG you will see on there, but it was linked as a JPEG file and there was no JPEG file included, so it didn't actually work. When I open this up it just gives me an error, and I assume the same thing will happen to you, but there are plenty of free high resolution wood texture images on the internet. So if you really wanted to replicate that, you can go ahead and find one of those. You might want to check out something like Unsplash, see if you can find something nice on that website, and that's just unsplash.com, which is a really good free commercial use website. Or just check out some royalty-free image searches if you want to go ahead and try to find something that'll work somewhat similarly. And once again, I'll just zoom in really close on these items so you can see how they look. It's a very clean vector look. All the illustration style was handled very nicely. So I think this pack overall is of very high quality. It pulls off this aesthetic quite nicely, and there's a bunch of different elements that you can kind of go in here and use. And this first page right here is really the huge assortment of everything that you can kind of pull, use, and rearrange as you see fit. So check out this page in particular if you're looking for a specific item. But that's it for this item. If you liked what you saw and you think you might have some use for it, just be sure to pick it up this week while it's still free. Next up is Swirlesque Typeface. This font is provided in both OpenType as well as TrueType font formats, and there is the main font as well as below that right here. I'm showing off some of the dingbats. There's a separate font for those, and those are also shown up at the top here of this ornaments page. That's also included as an EPS file, along with some other things that aren't in the actual dingbat font file right here. So there's a few different illustrations and elements that you can kind of use to either border or frame your type as you see fit. So these are actually very nicely done, and they work extremely well with the font that is provided. So this is a really cool little bonus that's included in on this set. And once again, up here we have some scrolling elements that if you want to accent the type a little bit, make things look a little bit more special, you can either use the included glyph font, or you can go ahead and just pull these from the ornament EPS file that's included. So up at the top here we have the actual font. So on the left right here we have the lowercase version of the font, and it is a script font that has a handmade feel, and I think this one has a lot of style to it. It does a very good job of pulling off that handmade look while still looking very professional, and it's actually quite readable as well, and I think it works extremely well in combination with the uppercase letters that I'll show when I actually wrote up a sentence. So over here we have the uppercase letters or the capital letters, so I'll just quickly go through all these as well. If I zoom in really close on the edges right here, you can tell they have a slightly rough or wavy kind of look to them that gives them that handmade feel, but it doesn't have a lot of jaggy edges or weird hard points for the most part, so that also does a pretty nice job of making this look a little bit more soft, a little bit more handmade than some of the rougher script fonts out there. So if I go down here, you can tell it includes all the numbers 0 through 9 shown right here, and they obviously work quite nicely with the style of the letters above. And they also include a ton of different special characters, so I just typed out a few of them right here. But if I go to type and then glyphs near the top here and start scrolling down all the different glyphs that are included, you can tell it includes a ton of different combinations, special characters, special letters. So be sure to check all these out if you want to see everything that's included. And they also include a manual in PDF form that kind of shows you how you can get a little bit more use out of these and really make these glyphs work for you to make your type look that much more custom when you start writing stuff out. So right here I typed up Free Goods Roundup so you can see how this looks typed up into a sentence, and I think this example really shows off how awesome this font is. Everything looks very consistent and very fluid. It pulls off that handmade look extremely well in my opinion, and I just think overall this is one of the stronger handmade script looking fonts that I've shown on any Free Goods Roundup in the past. So below that I just typed up a few of the glyphs that are included in the dingbats file, but this is really just a few of them. If I go to type and then glyphs near the top here, you can see all the different little scrolling elements. So it's up to you if you want to use the font to do that, or if you want to open up the ornaments EPS file and just grab them from here. So a super cool font. It's actually one of my favorite hand-drawn script fonts that I've seen on any of the free goods available in the past. So this one's a really huge recommendation from me. So if you like this font and you think you'll have use for it either now or in the future, just be sure to grab it this week while it's still free. Next up is Flat Mobile Web UI Kit for Sketch. This is a UI mockup kit, and it's provided in EPS as well as JPEG format, but the JPEG is flattened down, so the EPS format will be far more useful for the actual purpose of this, which is mocking up different device layouts for mobile devices. So as you can see right here, these are actually very nicely done, and the style is just super clean and well executed. So I'll kind of scroll through everything here so you can get a better idea of what to expect when you actually download this. So there's things such as sign-in screens, play buttons, follow buttons, and then additional things like calendars or weather. So there are quite a few different things here that you can go ahead ahead and customize and put on this simple iPhone mockup right here where you can pull off these different elements. I'm just gonna very quickly try to group this and then ungroup this. I just ungrouped this really quick. I'm actually gonna remove this background because it's kind of getting in the way. But you can of course move off all these elements that are kind of pre-arranged on this cell phone right here, and then if you want to, you can go in there and start dragging and dropping these different elements on there. A lot of them are grouped together, so you will have to ungroup them, and then you might want to even just select over them and hit Control-G on a PC or Command-G on a Mac to regroup them, so you can drag them back on here very easily and start building your own custom UI mockup right here. So as you can see, it's very quick and easy to go in here and just start laying out buttons and getting a good idea of how you want to lay out this device as a whole. Although I don't think these elements will cover you for absolutely everything that you might want to accomplish, there is a pretty decent selection of things to go in here and kind of start doing some rough layouts of possible ideas that might be just enough for you to go in there and kind of get the idea across, even if all these elements aren't the exact same things that you might want to use on your actual project in the future. But laying out stuff like this very quickly inside a program like Illustrator is just a whole lot faster than trying to actually do it or create all these elements fully before you get the rough layout done. It'll just save you a whole lot of time as you're trying to very quickly execute your concepts and ideas. And of course you can select over this phone and then hold down Alt or Option on a Mac and just drag it so it duplicates off to the side here, and then you can go ahead and start putting some different elements inside to kind of make some other layouts, so you can very quickly make a whole bunch of different versions or revisions until you find one that you think is working best for you. But a cool pack that's very well executed, and you can of course try to match the style and make even more elements to add to this if you're up to the challenge of doing that. So if you think you'll find this UI mockup kit useful, just be sure to grab it this week while it's still free. Next we have Summer Holiday. This is a collection of 3 different seamlessly repeating patterns with a summer theme in both EPS as well as JPEG format. So I have the EPS file opened up inside Illustrator here to show it. I'm just going to very quickly zoom out a little bit here and then make this repeat very quickly just so you can kind of get a good idea of how these actually repeat when you're doing this in practice. I'm doing this pretty fast, so if things don't line up perfectly, I'm likely the one at fault here. But as you can tell, these do repeat very nicely. The repeat seems to work quite well without being super apparent that it is a repeat. So if you're trying to cover something really big, this is a very useful way to go ahead and do that. And I'll just zoom in really quickly here on the actual illustration so you can tell it's very simple in its execution, but it's also quite cleanly done, so it looks very professional. So here's the next one, which is a little bit more complicated, and there's a bunch of different elements here that you could of course select and use on their own. So if you're looking for a bird or perhaps a vintage style swimsuit, you have all these to go ahead and use. So even if you don't want to use these as a seamlessly repeating pattern, you can of course just use the individual elements as you see fit, or even select different things like these words right here, remove them, and then write your own custom type, or you could just remove this altogether and perhaps bring a different element back into the middle here and start kind of moving these around to make your own repeat in the center. And the background wavy elements, you could even just use just those if you want to go ahead and select all this stuff and just delete it, and you want to have a simple repeating pattern. If I just quickly drag this off to the side here and then do a very quick repeat of that, you can kind of tell how this looks. It's actually a very interesting repeat to use on its own if you don't want to use all the different illustrations. So here's the third one, which is kind of like what I was doing on the one previously, where the type isn't in the center, but it just has all these different elements kind of scattered about nice and randomly to create a visual repeat here. And you can usually tell a repeat's going to look pretty visually good when you have elements that go off the top and the sides and break up the blank areas that sometimes happen in repeats if everything just lives in the center. So if I quickly repeat this one right here and then we can take a look at it, you'll see that it will look very natural in its appearance because of the way they chose to handle this. So if I drag these off really quick, whoops, I should probably select everything before I do that. I'll do that quickly and drag this once again. You can tell this looks very natural, and the repeat, although you can tell it is a repeat by just kind of following the different elements right here, it also looks very natural and fluid, so this should be a pretty solid one to use if you like this style. So if you like these repeats and you think you'll have use for them, just be sure to grab it this week. And last up here is Summit one-page responsive theme. These are Bootstrap, HTML, and CSS responsive themes, so they are fully responsive and they don't require the use of a CMS like WordPress. So if you want to go in there and not worry about that and just custom code it yourself, these should be very easy to go in there and modify and just kind of change around the stuff to make it suit your needs. And there are a few different versions. So this one right here is called Company Blue and this one is called Company Green. So the main difference is the color palette used, but as you can tell, this header image is different than the one right here, so that's one main differentiator. And there are also different ones called Product. So this one right right here is called Product Blue, which focuses on, in this case, a website product, but the product could be whatever it is you want it to be. So as I scroll down here, you can kind of see some different product elements scroll in here. So if you're doing an app or a website, or you could just flip out these images to be anything from bicycles to helmets. It doesn't really matter what it is. This should work pretty well for that. Just be sure to flip out all the images so it kind of makes sense. But I'll just quickly scroll down to the bottom of this product one so you can see some of the visual ways that these different items pop in as you scroll down. There's a pricing structure as well as an accordion right here. We can kind of minimize or maximize this information. So you actually have to click on the titles right here to make that happen. But it's pretty easy once you figure out how to do that. You could even code these little plus and minus marks to make these expand or contract. And then we have a subscribe button at the bottom here with a simple footer. And once again, this is the blue version. So right here we have a green version with the wooden background, just like it was on the one for the company, but the actual content as I go down here is just the same, except all the stuff is in green instead of blue. Pretty self-explanatory. So as far as the one for company, it doesn't focus on the product so much. It's more about the actual services you provide. There's a clients list, so you can go ahead and list all your clients here. There are portfolio items. If you click on this, it brings up a very large light box of that particular item. And to exit it, you just click on that image and it brings you back here. That little part wasn't super intuitive to me. It took me a little bit to figure that out. But you could certainly put some kind of type underneath this that just says click on the image to go back to the main page here. As I scroll down, we have a meet the team section as well as a contact and then a map. That's pretty standard on a lot of these websites with the actual phone number and address right here, as well as your standard contact form. So overall, a very nice selection of a few different templates, all that are very similar but in different colors. And then there's one for company as well as one for actual products. So if you like these themes and you think you'll have some use for them either now or in the future, just be sure to grab this one this week. So that's it for this week's free goods, and do remember they are free this week only, so be sure to check out the description of this video if you want to download anything. And as always, if you found this video helpful, please like and favorite, and if you want to see this video every week, please subscribe. This video is released every Monday, so you know it's free this week on Creative Market. Thank you for watching.